Well, we begin today with a focus on how research can help make producers more efficient than ever.
It turns out that experts with Acres Equipment are doing testing on planter technology to help producers increase yields and save some time. In this sponsored segment from Acres Equipment, we take a closer look at a test plot near Albion and what's being learned.
Hi, everybody. We are in Albion and we're learning more about some test plots that Acres is involved with, and we're joined now by Kyle A. Frank. And Kyle, it's good to see you today.
Yeah, good to see you, John.
What is going on out here in this cornfield?
Okay, so we're doing a couple trials this year around planter technology. So one thing we always try to do throughout the years is understand what technology makes sense for our growers. So some of that is us figuring out what works and doesn't work in our fields. So in this trial, we're comparing both our ExactEmerge and MaxEmerge 5E electric planter. So with our ExactEmerge planter, it's a planter that really has no bounds on speed. We talk to a lot of growers and they tell us, I can't pull it at 10 mile an hour, I don't need to go fast, that planter's not for me. But the things we're seeing is whether we're going 5 mile an hour, 8 mile an hour, 10 mile an hour, that planter performs when we ask it to perform. So we alternated passes throughout this field between the MaxEmerge 5E planter and the ExactEmerge, so we could alternate passes. So then when we look at yields at the end of the year, we have a good representation. Then also with that trial is we did passes at 5 mile an hour, and then we did passes at 8 mile an hour with the ExactEmerge. Here we have pretty hilly terrain, so it's hard to go very fast because we're limited on horsepower and how hard we can actually pull it. So some of the data we'll look at is actually looking at productivity differences, fuel consumption, and we look at the acres per hour gains and how we can look at that through the growing season and how ultimately we can get done planting sooner, which ultimately cuts down on yield drag. So that's one of the trials we're doing. The other one is we are actually comparing two different closing wheels on the ExactEmerge planter. So for model year 23, we have the option for a Yetter Twister closing wheel, factory installed. So we put that Yetter Twister on half the planter, and we put the regular rubber tire closing wheel we've had for quite a few years on the other half. So we're comparing both of those. We'll look at yield on both. This morning and actually a couple weeks ago, we were out here looking at stand counts and look at comparisons. If we can see behind us, we have some trail cameras set up for a time lapse. So on these 4 different cameras, we'll have a time lapse so we can actually see what the emergence looks like, and ultimately as that corn keeps continuing to grow, how those plants are growing and developing.
What again is the benefit of doing this research?
So the biggest thing we're really after is cutting down that planting window. So how do we plant faster? So over the years, before we had technology that would allow us to go fast, the only way we could really plant faster was with larger planters. And a lot of our terrain limits on how fast we can actually pull the planter, how the planter will flex, what we can do in our fields. So our other option is to actually go faster. So a lot of what we're doing with our trials is how do we prove we can go faster and maintain the same yield or actually have better yield. So a lot of it's just proving out the technology, making sure it does everything we want it to, and showing the growers across Nebraska what it actually does and what we find for results in our trials.
All right, Kyle, thank you very much for joining us today and taking us out in the field here and showing us this trial that you're doing. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks, John.